All right, let's get started at 7 o'clock. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I have no change to the order of business, so we'll move right on to communications to the board. I did not get any, I just got one communication on school security that I will share with Jeff. Actually, we all got it. One email, but that was it. Sorry. So we will open it for public comment if anyone would like to comment tonight. All right. We will move on to, I don't have, well, actually I do have something in my chair report tonight. So thank you. I forgot we moved that. So first off, tonight's our last board meeting for those of us that aren't seeking re-election. So I just wanted to thank Mary and Tony and Travis, and I guess myself, for your years of service on the board. Thank you. You've done a lot on committees, both of you, and that work, that's tireless work that you've both been involved in some pretty heavy duty committees. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Moving forward, and wish you luck and wish the rest of the board luck as well. And I also wanted to thank Penny. Penny did a ton of work last year as chair of the superintendent search committee. I don't think we could have done it without her, quite frankly.
Thank you.
I don't know how much time you spent, but it was a lot of time.
Thank you.
Coordinating that. And of course, we have a wonderful superintendent as a result. So thank you, Penny,
Welcome.
and the board for participating in that subcommittee. Oh, thank you. It's definitely bittersweet leaving, but it'll be nice to spend some time with my family and time for myself too. So definitely bittersweet though. So at the next, I mentioned this at the last board meeting, but the December meeting, the new board and those of you returning will have to vote for the chair and the vice chair and the secretary. So Kelly as vice chair will lead that vote at the December 5th meeting. That'll be the first order of business. You'll go through nominations. You'll start with chair, take nominations. There could be more than one. People will second that nomination, and then you'll vote for chair. Then you'll move to vice chair, same deal, and then secretary. So does anyone have any questions about that? I think a lot of us have gone through that before, so. Okay. If you have any questions between now and then, I'll talk to you. All right. That being said, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Carl. I echo the sentiment of having a wonderful board, my first board, and our collaborative governance and working together. And also want to publicly thank Carl as chairperson. He has provided a great deal of wisdom, a great path to move forward, great expertise, and a voice of calm and reason throughout my time here. I have not even been on for a year. It's shortly to come by the end of the month, or by the end of this month. And I'll be, forever in gratitude for your warm welcome, the time that you've spent with me on a weekly basis, via text, via phone, and just guiding the work of our district as well. So I'm indebted to you. Thank you, Carl. And thank you to Travis, and thank you to Tony, and thank you to Mary. I have a small gift of appreciation that we'd like to give to all of our board members that are concluding their term right now. So with that, that's on behalf of central office and all of New Hartford Public Schools, all of the students and staff and families. We are just so indebted to you for working side by side together to do the best that we can for our children each and every day. So from the bottom of my heart and our families, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
You got it? Absolutely.
Chocolates,
Thank you.
chocolates.
Keep them over here.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you all. Moving on to the next portion of the agenda, I'd like to welcome up our leadership team, Dr. Kelly Carroll, Mrs. Kennedy, and our curriculum coach, Heather Mathis, to begin the presentation of student performance that we do on an annual basis. They will come up and do our presentation together. So without further ado, call my team up.
Is it going to be up here?
Yes, it'll be on the slide behind me.
Until everything else is okay? Okay. Great, and start us off.
Oh, thank you.
Gentle back up.
Okay, so tonight we are going to provide you with some information, an update on our academic performance. We're going to focus on two assessment types. We're going to talk about our Smarter Balanced results, as well as one of our universal screeners that we use to measure student progress in reading, our DIBELS assessment. So before we kind of dive into the data and talk to you about some of the highlights and some of the areas for growth, we wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between these two types of assessments. So as we look at our Smarter Balance, which is sort of like what we call like a one and done, right? We do it annually every year. Students in grades 3 through 6 take this assessment. It's a state assessment. It's a summative assessment at the end of the year in ELA math, and our 5th graders also, there's a science component. And you know, this kind of assessment, it serves a purpose. It's one way, one helpful tool to help us, know if students are, meeting those end of grade level indicators and so forth. So that's one way in which we get a reliable measure. But it's not the end all be all and does have some limitations to it. So, for example, when we get those results, we don't see a lot of student level data. We really see sort of a high level view. So it does help us determine any next steps for like maybe curriculum and major programming. But in terms of supporting students and understanding what the student might need, this kind of assessment doesn't really give us too much of that information. So we also use different types of universal screeners. And the one we're going to talk about tonight is the DIBELS assessment, which focuses on reading, and it serves a very different purpose. So with universal screeners, we give those more often, frequently during the year, typically at least 3 times. And the information we get is much more student specific. So we're able to take a look at how students might be performing toward these grade level standards in reading specifically, and kind of take that information. And if we see students who might be at risk for not meeting those standards, we can intervene appropriately and quickly and give targeted support and instruction. So 2 very different types of assessments, but both kind of working together to help inform the work we do to support students. And, as a team, when we're always looking at this information and we're analyzing it, we always kind of have to remember that, with all of our assessments, multiple measures are more accurate than a single measure. So putting all of our eggs in the Smarter Balance basket or in the DIBELS basket, that's not really what we want to do. We want to make sure we're looking at all this information very holistically, knowing that once is not enough, especially with Smarter Balance. It's like one one time of year. So really making sure that we're looking at data regularly, looking for trends across time, and then understanding that sometimes these state assessments and these screeners give us so much great information, but they never really provide the answers. They just help, raise questions so we know where we can go next with our work. So we're excited to share with you some of the insights that we're gleaning from these assessments. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, who is going to talk about science first.
Okay, so science, we also have a summative assessment for science, much like the Smarter Balanced. It is called NGSS. It stands for Next Generation Science Standards, and what it measures is student performance on the science standards. This test is given to students in 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade. Because of that, it does make it a little bit difficult for us to use this data in a consistent way like we might see with cohort data. However, something very positive that we're seeing is that we are consistently above the state average scale score by 20 to 30 points. So in that green, you can see New Hartford Public Schools is in the green. That's because our average score falls in that proficient goal range. So we're actually very proud of our science scores. Back to Amy.
Okay, so we're going to move on to English language arts. We're going to talk first about DIBELS. So we're going to swap over to thinking about DIBELS as a universal screener. So here, what we see here is our percentage of students in each benchmark category. So we have the blue, which means above, green is meeting, yellow sort of on watch, possibly at risk, and then red more at risk. So what we see here is for each grade level, K, first, second, and third, because we administer this for those grades. We administer this 3 times a year. So this is showing us the fall to fall comparison. And this is really helpful information to look at. And what we're trying to see over time as we compare last year's kindergarten in the fall to this year's kindergarten in the fall, and et cetera, is that we're looking for some consistency or even some improvement in how the students come into the grade level in terms of readiness. And so we also are able to, with this type of assessment, say, who are those students that are in that yellow band or in that red band? What can we do to support those students? So a couple of really cool things that we noticed when we were looking at this that we were really proud of, specifically when thinking about this year's kindergarten and this year's 3rd grade. So if you take a look at the kindergarten, that bottom on the first box there, just kind of come up here and point. And this is our incoming kindergarten. And we noticed that compared to the kindergarten before them and the kindergarten before them, this was one of the most strong cohorts coming into us, into our school system. So that's really good news for us. So the students, there are not too many students who are at risk starting the year off in kindergarten for us. And then similarly for 3rd grade, going into Antolini this year, the 3rd graders are coming in a little bit higher holistically than the previous 3rd grade and the previous 3rd grade before that. So those are some really good highlights that we're seeing. When we look at 1st grade here, so this is our current 1st grade, and this is something where we notice, wow, okay, the 1st grade before that seemed to perform a little bit better, the 1st grade before that as well. So when we take a deeper look here, and we think about that group of kids, so here they are as 1st graders. So even though they were lower than other incoming 1st graders, when we take a look at how they performed as kindergarten students coming in, so these are the same group of kids, we see that they came in. I remember last year thinking, oh, wow, our kindergarten coming in was, seemed a little bit lower than typical. They maintained that growth, and now here they are starting as 1st graders, much stronger than they were starting off as kindergartners. So again, some really positive growth when you dive in a little deeper. And then finally, just taking a look at 2nd grade. In our 2nd grade, this is a really strong cohort for us. We have a lot of students who are performing above the benchmark for this time of year, which is amazing. But we have had several students kind of move in, so that's where our work is to be done with our 2nd grade. So that's where our areas of focus are. But in really looking at this, it feels really good to start the year and see these positives. All right. So now we will swap over to Kelly again.
So I'm going to refresh your memory with what we're looking at with the Smarter Balance, this assessment results. This is the trend data. Okay, so we're going all the way back. This takes us back to the 2014-15 school year and goes all the way up to last year, the 22-23. What you're seeing in the blue line, those are third graders. And it's not a cohort of third graders, it's third grade each school year. Okay, so different students. The green line is fourth grade, red is fifth, and the yellow is sixth. What you see on the vertical scale here is the scale score. How students are measured on the Smarter Balance assessment is using a scaled score. They get points per question answered correctly. You'll notice that it increases by grade level as the amount of points that you can earn. Okay, this red line in the middle, this is the year of COVID. So that is the 2019-2020 year when Smarter Balance was not administered because we were all home. That red line does not represent a data point. It represents just a skipped year. So we've decided that we need to look at data as kind of pre-COVID and post-COVID. And the reason for that is because if we start looking at post-COVID, we actually can show you a cohort trend, which I will show you in a moment. So what we've noticed in the past is we had a very volatile scaled score. The scores were all over the place, up and down each year. We're noticing currently, after COVID, we're kind of having a plateau. However, when we looked a little deeper, we did notice that we had some really nice growth within that. So our average scale score consistently fell in the green, which is the goal proficient range. The state was a little bit lower than us in the approaching range. Okay, so we consistently scored higher than the other cohorts within the state. Okay, and now I'm going to show you a cohort trend. So these are our current sixth graders, but here they are in third grade. Okay, so in third grade, their scale score was 2465. And then when they moved to fourth grade, they grew 24 points. And then when they moved to fifth grade, that was last year, wow, they went up 37 points. So we noticed a nice increase in amount of points earned in the past 2 years. And what that gave us was so far they have a total of 61 points increase. What we'll know this year is how did they perform as sixth graders. And what we're very interested in is now we have implemented our new EL education program for ELA, and it's a much more rigorous program. And although the SBAC is only one type of indicator for student success, we are expecting to see some nice growth this year with our sixth grade. Yeah. Other years?
I know.
It's a little weird.
Okay, so we're going to take you through the same steps as we did for ELA with math. So here we have our trend data, same idea we have starting back from 2014. The red line again shows you the COVID year. Here we have from the 22-23 school year that we were above the state average in third grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade. And I want to just talk a little bit more about these scores before I show you the cohort. So on average, our scale score in third grade was 2450. The state's average was 2432. This green means that puts them in the level 3 range. So when, if you have students receiving the Smarter Balance report, they either get a level 1, 2, 3, or 4 score on Smarter Balance. And that score, that number, is based on the amount of scale score points, and it's a range. So our third graders, on average, our scale score puts them at 2450, which is that level 3. As a state, 2432, which would put them at that level 2 range. When we look at our fourth grade, we did not exceed the state's scale score average. However, we're in the same range of scale score points. So that level 2 range. For our fifth graders, there's little asterisks there because when we looked a little bit more closely at their scale score points in that range of level 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're actually only 2 points away from being in that green, in that level 3 proficiency band, which tells us that on any given day, those scale score points can fluctuate. So if this same group of fifth graders on a different day took the assessment again, there is a chance that they could have done better. Again, there is a chance that they might not have performed as well, but there is that little range. So when it's that close, it is statistically significant for us to consider. Does that make sense? What all those mean? Okay. And then for our sixth graders, our scale score was 20 points above the state average scale score. However, on average, the sixth graders in the state of Connecticut are in that level 1 range. Okay. So that's what all that means. Again, just a way for us to look closely at what all this, right? We can look at the trends and see, but why are those trends there and how are they performing year after year? So taking a look at our current sixth grade group of students, as third graders, their scale score points on average, their average scale score was 2454. Ooh, I went the wrong way, sorry. In fourth grade, it was 2488, so they grew by 34 score scale points. As fifth graders, they grew another 37 points. So in total, they grew 71 points from third grade. And again, this year, we'll be able to see how much more they grow from there. So again, growth over time is really important to us. We want to make sure that although what these trends show us are important, we also need to look across the grade level and the years to see how those cohorts of students are performing. Questions about any of that?
When those scores have been in the green, their reason for coloring is in there. So those,
These here?
let's tell them. Yeah. That, and that green.
Oh, yes. Yes, I see what you're saying. So are these scale score points in that range? Yes. Yep. Okay, and again, this just kind of takes a look at holistically where we've also, these were the tables we shared in the beginning. So we could take a look at, yes, what our average scale score points are and how does that relate to what the state's average is as well. So just thinking about some next steps, again, is something that we continuously are looking at. And so one of the pieces of information that we'll be looking at this year and learning how to analyze is something called STAR. And it is another tool that we can use to monitor growth over time to for students in 3rd through 6th grade for reading and students in math grades 1 through 6. And so as we get to know the assessment and how to analyze the data, it will help to drive instruction so that it in many ways can help us to identify students who are at risk and to predict how students might do on Smarter Balance. As Amy mentioned in the beginning, it's that one-time, 2-day assessment, but is there a way that we can get pieces of information and data to help us anticipate how students might do and how we can adjust our instruction along the way? Again, maintaining our DIBELS assessment will be critical, K3. And then we'll be looking at our new ELA program and those assessments and how they align to these assessments as well. So we just gave you a ton of information.
Couple questions.
Sure.
You mentioned when we first started, more points available that should go up in grade. Wouldn't you automatically expect the change in grading? Plus that, wouldn't you, there's more points available, wouldn't you expect?
Yes, but there's also, so all of the questions that it's an adaptive assessment. So students, based on how they answer questions, the next questions are determined by how they answer the previous question. And so some of those questions that they're given have a higher depth of knowledge, it's called. And so that depth of knowledge If it's higher, it's has more points. So as we, it's really, want to,
I'm actually thinking, like, I have an example, like when we look at the. So yes and no. So there is, when we're looking at student data with the Smarter Balance, there is a range of scale score points they can earn. So if you're a third grader, this is the lowest score you can get, and then this is the highest score you can get, but there's overlap with the previous and grade and the grade above. So it is possible, thinking about my own children, seeing their reports, there's been times when like it looks like, wow, scale score points, they only grew like 2 points. And so they're actually still in a range from a previous grade. That can happen. We don't want that to happen, but that is something that can happen. So as much as there is room to grow, so yes, we anticipate that most kids will make growth. What we're seeing here with our growth is that, and especially when we look at it against the context of the state, we know that that's very adequate growth versus it not being such great growth. So I think to your point, I think that's sort of, am I right? Was that what you were sort of asking? Yeah. Okay.
So my other question would be on the graphs, like up and down the year. Obviously I know there's different cohorts in the year, obviously that. But, if you stretch these numbers out from 2014, 20, it's not like these are all going up, right? They're not all going up. Obviously, different kids every year, you weren't expecting them to always go up.
Correct.
But our hope is that they would, as well. We're trying to increase our level of teaching and our ability to communicate the skills they need. So you hope that they were always somewhat of a upward trajectory from way back then to now. And you don't see that, right? So they're. I'm just wondering, I guess we're changing our way we teach. We hope that we start seeing all the positive growth.
we wanted to study, right? As we mentioned before, like it's very volatile, and we keep using that word, right? And so what we wanted to see, while it's not going to be exactly, we do want to see that gentle incline as it goes instead of all these jagged up and down. So over time, that's our goal, that they're all going to move together in an upward motion.
Maybe just that one other thing on there. So not just speaking, again, you stated it perfectly that every cohort is unique. So over time, we want to do that. And we did see some, and we are starting to see some plateauing. But again, to the point where a cohort of 60 kids are going to have different values because that's the full cohort. That's your denominator if you're thinking of it as a ratio, right? The next cohort of kids could be 72 kids. So then it starts to make variations. Students can come in with needs that are very broad, diverse, and to meet those needs, you could have different accommodations or modifications put in place. But our goal, no matter what, as we're demonstrating, is to show them making that cohort of kiddos not stagnating, but moving up and continuing to grow into the next band and pushing them for that, with those high expectations constantly. But with different cohorts of kids, like you said, that's the variability when you receive new kids that move in and picking up the pieces where they were from the previous districts, the previous states that they're moving in from, and trying to get them where they're at and then moving them forward. That presents some variability as well to what we have here in our graphics that we're showing.
Ultimately, just taking an average of a class is really a poor assessment of what's going on.
It's one way without showing obviously individualized confidential information, right? So this is our manner of demonstrating in a cohort pool of children as they move throughout. And our district is large enough that we can do that. Other districts don't even have that at all. So this information is suppressed, is what they call it. You go onto the state website, you see an asterisk. There's too few children to share that information publicly because it would be in violation of the rights to have that data stored privately.
And I'm not criticizing the way we teach. I think we do a good job. Finding something. That's not what I'm going. So I mean, Jeff, to your point, you think that you would build on, you're building in the year, eventually that student you built in the second grade, and you have more knowledgeable third grade, it would eventually start building to a degree where you can see the constant uptake of teaching. So my only point of this maybe is the best way to evaluate how the kids are doing. That's really what I was going with. I don't want to put too much on this because to me, I don't think it's indicative of what we offer here in this district. That's basically.
Yeah, thinking back to that first slide, right? We're like putting all our eggs in the basket, and we know, I think small rural school problems too, our sample sizes are very small. And so that also makes it challenging when looking at data in this way, because those sample sizes they're not large enough to kind of offset some of the skewing that naturally happens mathematically too.
We're gonna get people who are gonna look at that. But we- Who would say, well, I might spending $9 million, right? So maybe this isn't the best, maybe there's a different way. I'm not
One way.
saying I know what that way is, but
Mm.
maybe there is.
One way, and this is the way that we currently have right now, and then obviously we're sending home, more assessment information for parents and they know individually, because that is the matter in the moment. That's the reality, right? Of where we're at, where we're scoring and what we need support in. Again, this is very high level, generic district-wide view of the reporting mechanism that we have with the state of Connecticut, obviously, and what we do, again, to protect everyone's information. But we do want to be prideful in showing that we are moving cohorts of kids, no matter how we get them, we are moving them and helping them get to that next level. As an average, yes, not the best way, but a way of showing that as well. So we do want to highlight the positives, but also recognize areas that we can continue to grow and do better and better. Thank you.
Do we have this data from the other primary school systems that feed into Beetle?
So in some cases though, they're too small, so their data is suppressed. So it's not data that we have access to. That's can be tricky because they are smaller than us. But there are ways that we can get similar schools that would have similar data.
One more question.
Yeah, sure. We're really good at wait time, right?
Yeah.
When something Brad stands out, right? When they're the sixth grade cohort that went up to regional last year, this year. How do we use this information? Do we share it with regional to be able to prepare them for these students that are otherwise not testing properly? I'm gonna say not testing to the standards that, that the state or the level we're looking for.
Yes, so the information follows the student to their next district. So all the student level data is available to regional, and they can use that information. And kind of just going back to we were talking about the STAR assessments as our next step. So regional utilizes that tool as well. And then we're going to be we started to bring that down. So then we'll have another kind of shared data point that's more useful in terms of figuring out what students need and being able to intervene, because it's more of that universal screening. So, we're excited to have something in common again to help support students as they move through the entire system. And just like looking at that sixth grade, right? It's red, but in comparison to the state, it's a statewide problem. So that's why it's another nice way to look at the data that way in context to and comparing how we are to the state. So.
These numbers not to me for some reason are like the 246, 2465 plus 34 doesn't add up to 2489. And then 2489 plus 37 doesn't add up to 2525.
Because that's just following one particular cohort. That's not this year's. This is just this year and where those kids were last year. This is following the cohort from third grade all over.
65. You're saying 89 to 65.
What's this?
It should be 24. It is an error.
The 2465 to 2489. 24 versus 34. Right?
Go fix that.
Thank you.
Is it 37? So that makes the next one wrong also.
Yes, we will fix that.
Thank you.
This data just within Connecticut or other states, same thing.
Other states have a state standardized assessment. This is just Connecticut.
Is it similar tests or different tests? I haven't these assessments, we wanted to be fair regionally, nationally, all that.
So different states that use the Common Core standards, they all have a Common Core aligned test. For example, like New York doesn't use Smarter Balance. I think they use Park Assessment. Like they have a different assessment, generally the same idea though.
That is really good. Next week's already done now.
Yeah, not really.
No, our state, like even if another state uses Smarter Balance, their way in which they decided cut scores and like what makes a student in a category 1 or what makes a student in category 2, that was locally decided in the state of Connecticut. So we're kind of stuck just looking at this assessment very locally at the state level only.
You know, they're coding kids. You know, there's definitely glaring. You know, the discrepancy between what they've learned and what they missed. You know, the gap in there. And you know, what I do about that is and
I read that as that's the last year's sixth grade class.
right. Well, either way, then, yeah, I know what you're saying. But the other interesting thing, we know this is what happened with my daughter's class when regional. They didn't have the scores in time when they went to. That this happened to their math. Surprisingly, and they were. And you would think there would be a low number of students who are on the lower end academically. And what happened there? The scores didn't come in. They missed either had that year of taking the tests, and so they had nothing to go by. So teachers just guessed. Do you remember this? When teachers guessed and decided who was going to go in honors math, for instance. There was such a large number of honors math that they needed to add another class. So they decided that okay, we have to do this better in the future and make sure that we have some kind of way. And I think isn't something implemented now. Some kind of way of testing these kids if they get their scores back. Because we're getting them right now. And that doesn't help me when you're going to place kids in honors classes. And they use that as a tool to help.
Yeah. And now we're able to see the results like before the end of the school year.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
My concern with the tests like these it's so subjective. You can have a kid who's tired on one day, and you bomb this test, and then you have them on another day and they're fine and they do like extremely well. You have kids who are anxious who can't take tests. And so my thing is are you teaching them how to take tests, or are you actually teaching them how to think, critical skills, function in society? This is, to me, is like no way, shape, or form indicative of someone's intelligence or their ability to function in society. My concern is, well, this is great. We're teaching them how to take tests. We're not teaching them how to think. And are they actually comprehending the information and utilizing it in their day? I don't know. I've always had a problem with these tests. I have a problem with my son takes a test. He can literally take a test today and excel, and then tomorrow he's in a bad mood. He doesn't feel like doing it, and he bombs the test. But that data is shown on here. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really take a lot of stock in this type of tests. I think we're missing a whole bunch of kids that have been asked about.
Which is why we're talking about using multiple measures
Yeah.
to accurately assess our kiddos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. That student level work in the classroom, like that's where where students can shine and show that what they know. And that often isn't, unfortunately, can be reflected on some of these types of things. So. But it can give us some information to inform some of our work. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you again to the team and thank you board for your questions. Just as a quick reminder, please press the button because I'm sure folks, if they're listening at home, want to hear some of the questions that you posed, but they were great questions. Great question of our mathematical addition or subtraction. So we'll take care of those pieces of information. This presentation will also be posted on our website and be inclusive of our board minutes once the corrections have been made. All right. Up next, we have just a reminder that our next school armed security officer informational session will be conducted right here at Antolini School on November the 21st. So that'll take place here at Antolini in the Library Media Center. And moving on to something that is very near and dear to my heart.
6 p.m.
Six.
Yeah,
I'll have the-
7.
Thank you. Yes,
It's between 6 and 7.
correct. Thank you.
I just wanted to get it out there to the public.
You got it. You got it. We've posted it, mailed it, all of the above. Something near and dear to my heart. I want to take this moment in time. Today's very emotional Board of Ed meeting. Saying goodbye to board members. Also received news recently of a beloved community and a beloved community. How should I say it? Just a presence at both Bakerville and Antolini. Chris Barbarat, who serves as one of our administrative assistants in our school system, has recently announced her retirement. It's absolutely bittersweet because getting to know her and over the course of the past 11 years, she just has such a welcoming and beautiful presence about her. She makes sure that everything is running super smooth at Antolini on a daily basis. She knows the ins and the outs. She knows the historical knowledge. She knows everything. And after 27 years of service to the New Hartford Public Schools, she's announced her retirement. So it is very, very bittersweet. I want to say that, she is just a remarkable testament to diligence, loyalty, sincerity, and team spirit. And all of those have been exemplary in my eyes, and I know in the eyes of our community and our staff and our families. So Chris, we will absolutely miss you so much. We thank you so much for your service. We have a nice little gift as well back at central office. We invited her to tonight's meeting, but she could not be here. She had another family obligation to attend to. But I'm so happy for her to enter into this next stage of life, but also so sad for our loss here as our new Hartford Public School family. So if we can, just want to give her a round of applause and appreciation and celebration. Thank you, Chris, for all of your work. That concludes my superintendent's report. Send it back to Carl.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. All right, moving on to routine business. Approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any issues with the minutes? Where are my minutes? There they are. Otherwise, anyone wants to motion to approve? Deirdre? 20 seconds. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. And for the expenditure report, can I have a motion unless anyone wants to discuss the expenditure report?
I'll make a motion that we accept it.
3 seconds. Any discussion on the expenditures? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
I did that.
Oh, you did that. What about this?
Right, you want me to give that update?
Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have just a quick personnel update. And we're finally fully staffed. It is the month of November. So please just to update everybody at the Board of Ed that we've obviously, this has been announced before, we've hired our kindergarten teacher, Kristen Michalski at New Hartford. Todd Miltimore joined us as our brand new library media specialist. And Marcella Seton Cologne has joined us as our new special education teacher. So welcome aboard to everybody, fully staffed as of November 1st.
They've all started.
They've all started.
Great.
Yes.
Good. All right, moving on, we have the, for new business, we have the Board of Ed scheduled meetings for the upcoming school year. In your packet, actually, I should say calendar year, right?
Right.
These looked fine to me. I don't know if anyone else has any other.
Want me to speak?
Yes, please. Penny has some things for the board to consider.
Okay, looking at the calendar for next year and looking at the Board of Finance calendar, which Jeff sometimes, he tries to attend all the Board of Finance meetings when they have them, and sometimes they do ask him to present. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, actually 6 dates when it conflicts with a Board of Finance meeting, plus a 7th meeting, which is a public hearing to discuss next year's budget. That's a meeting that the Board of Education can attend, but Jeff and the new chairperson of the Board of Education is also expected to attend that meeting and ask any questions that the public should ask. So I had sent the changes to Jeff so that we're not in conflict with the Board of Finance, and I'd like to make those changes.
No, I'll read them out loud. So the first, there's a conflict with the Board of Finance meeting on March 19th. So if you want to asterisk that, and we can consider it for a change. The second would be May 14th. The next would be August 13th. And then the public hearing Penny mentioned is on the proposed budget would be on April the 2nd of 2024. So just to go back and asterisk that. And then she also stated the board has met in the first Tuesday of the month in the Board of Finance the following week. That's traditionally what's the schedule here in New Hartford. So those would be the dates to consider. In addition, knowing that next year's election, happy election day, everybody, by the way. Next year's election will also maybe have a larger, right, impact. So want to be strategic about thinking about our November 5th Board of Education date as well. So those would be up for consideration in terms of providing alternative dates the week before or the week after. She did not,
No,
just
I
made
did
mention
not.
that
I'm
these
sorry.
would be for discussion for the board.
And Penny, they've already set their
Yes,
whole schedule. All right.
yes.
Can I just say, I mean, wouldn't it make sense for the new board to have a say on this schedule? The new board coming in, the new members?
They can, but really it's going to be a conflict whether they're here or not because it's the Board of Finance is the conflict. So we could move the dates
No, I
around.
understand that aside, that aside, I mean, are we approving this tonight or?
We don't have to, but is your point, I mean, we always have our meetings on Tuesday. So are you saying if we move it to a Wednesday, maybe that conflicts for some of the new board members?
Well, I mean, I don't know, it just seems like maybe I'm overlooking something, but maybe it seems like the new members should have.
I mean, in case they want to change the night of our meetings from Tuesday
Well,
to
not
something else.
necessarily, but for whatever reason, I mean, they're the ones that are going to be attending these meetings.
But the only thing is if we meet on the same night as the Board of Finance and
That aside, those changes, whatever, is immaterial to what I'm saying here. It just seems to me like the new members should have a say in it, but
you mean like the January 16th meeting and the February 6th?
the schedule doesn't,
The
it's
schedule.
immaterial. It
Schedule in
doesn't even
general,
matter.
you're saying.
I'm just saying
Why
that
not
the
make
new
the new
members,
board?
I feel like
We
should
could.
be able to.
Tom?
Does that make sense to me,
Yeah, it
to
does.
anyone or no?
Well, my input, I hear what you're saying, but they're always gonna be on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So my suggestion, looking at these real quick, is let's move. March
Move them up or down?
19th Up a week to the 12th, and then take everything else and shift it a week the other direction. That's budget season.
Right.
We end up always skipping one meeting and usually April 2nd. By that.
Yeah.
because The right around the corner, so we could kick that one. Kick all those back.
And couldn't you always revisit it if there's a, like, if
Forward.
the
We-
new board wanted to revisit?
and then go
We could, but we might have to stick with special meetings at that point because we file it with the town.
Yeah.
Right.
If we stick with the schedule as Jeff presented it, and then we have to change a meeting, like Kelly said, or Carl said, there'll have to be special meetings, and then you're bound by whatever's on the agenda, which is what we don't want to do. What I would suggest is I will come up with the new dates, which I should have given you and I didn't, my error, for the next meeting, and we can vote on it then, and we still have enough time to get it to the town clerk so that we're not delayed. And I know it has to be X amount of days before the end of the year that we have to give it to her.
Mhm.
And that way, there's no issue with it.
What are those days?
Yeah, but why would you just take it again, from the 26th, the 9th, 21st, March 26th, April 9th? May.
If you want to table this, I'll make the
When-
changes
when-
now.
When does the clerk need us to submit the,
Before the end of the year, I know, like 30 days, it has to be like 30 days before our next meeting.
Correct.
Our January meeting,
so you would have time at the next meeting to vote
We do.
on the,
we
We
could.
just have to finalize it the next meeting
right,
if we're gonna
Yeah.
postpone it.
On that.
sure.
Well, to
I
what?
make a
What do
motion- I make a motion that Penny provides an alternate, a new
Sure.
calendar date to be voted on at the next meeting.
Second,
I mean, it's so far ahead. I mean, just coming on the board, I mean, this is so far ahead. that Who has stuff on the calendar, right? The Wednesday versus Tuesday. I don't know.
I think it's worth, you know,
But I think it is
cleaning it
worth
up
having
and-
Each of the board members and like, do.
And if-
Give a revised proposal for dates and have respect to the board members, have them review it.
agreed.
Makes sense.
So you'll be able to complete.
Yes,
that
I will have
by
it.
Next, all right.
Actually, I'll have it probably by tomorrow, good job.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Good. Thank you.
I'll add that to second reading under old business for next month.
Okay.
All right.
All right, moving on to our policy reads. This is our second reading, I believe, right, Mary, of all of these?
Yes,
No
yep, all
first
four
readings?
are second readings.
Okay, we have nothing new.
No.
Okay.
So the first one is the, regarding educational opportunities for our military children. Anyone have any questions on that one?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 5118.21 on students, military children as presented. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right.
Second one is P 6159. This one had some changes to some of the language on the first page. This one is for the IEP and SEP programs.
Do we identify any games to be followed in last week? We didn't, correct?
No. I don't think we did. Isn't that right?
Mhm.
We identified just some grammatical updates under the personnel substitute teachers. That's the only thing.
And this was updating language, so we were in line with new, what was it, Jeff?
Yep, new legislation that school
Legislation.
districts are now required to educate children to the age of 22 that are receiving specialized support under individualized educational planning. So that will be a indicator or informational piece that when we do our cost sharing with Region 7, that when the special education budget is increased there to meet these needs, then that our townspeople know that that is one piece that is leading to that increase.
I'll make a motion that we accept this update to policy 6159.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is 7230.2 regarding new construction. And the only updates to that were on the first page.
I'll second. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, and the last one, E4121. This is regarding substitute teachers. I'll make a motion that we accept the update to policy 4121.
Second. Only seconds. Any discussion?
Is this policy used to evaluate substitute teachers?
No, simply provide criteria for what they are to do when they come to the school to report, get your plans, ask questions, know where you're reporting to, emergency plans, things of that nature. It also increases the days that they could be a substitute teacher under a particular area from 40 to 60.
So this policy would be handed to a sub coming into the class, into the
No,
school?
they would then influence our policies of when we hire a substitute teacher, what we're telling them about, what we're instructing them, you know, kind of like guidelines and measures of, you know, what to do in case X, Y, or Z scenario comes up, or how to perform their daily tasks. That the expectation is that they complete the lesson plans, that they leave a detailed note of what had happened for the teacher, things of that nature.
So this would be used as an interviewing tool more so, or I'm just wondering, I'm just reading, I don't want to belabor this, but
Sure.
maintain effective classroom management.
Mhm.
Right. To me, that's something I would talk to someone to work for me and give them a grade on it. Is if they're going to raise or not.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm just wondering what this is for.
Yeah, I have great trust that if one of our teachers noticed that the substitute is having a difficult time, they would go in and support and assist. So would our administrative staff. So if we notice that, then we may not be asking that individual to come back, or if they need additional coaching or support or help, we would provide it. But it's not going to be an interview question to say, you know, do you have great classroom management? Because we can't measure that in an interview, right? We'd have to see that on the job. And that we do have a policy in place where our protocol in place where they do come in and they shadow. So we're able to have them come in and see what it's like to live in the shoes of a classroom teacher or to be a substitute teacher for the day.
And then just quickly under retired teacher responsible. That change is based on what?
You'll have to guide me there, Tim. I don't know where you are.
R4121B. Second last page, retired teacher.
Yeah, that is established by the Connecticut Teachers Retirement Association. So once you've retired, you can only fulfill an area of need up to, it was $3,600 per year. They've changed that language so that they could earn the 45% of their maximum salary level. So that's the only change there, but that came from the Connecticut Teacher Retirement Board themselves.
Anything else?
I don't know if we had a motion or anything.
There was a motion.
Okay, very good.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. You got that motion, right?
Yep,
You're off
Way
to
ahead
the,
of you.
you're off to the races. I see that.
way
Mhm.
ahead of you.
You can do the honors, Penny. I have no reports.
Just want to wish everybody, yes, from the board and to the board and everyone in town, want to wish everybody a wonderful and happy, healthy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn at 8:01.
Second.
Second by Tony. All those in favor? Deirdre? Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Good job, Jeff. We're out of here by 8.
Good night.